The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. The 1,000 injuries of Fortunato I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that gave utterance to a threat. At length I would be avenged. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortunato cause to doubt my goodwill, and he did not perceive that my smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortunato, although in other regards he was a man to be respected and even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. I was skillful in the Italian vintages myself, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk one evening, during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. I said to him, "My dear Fortunato, you are luckily met. How remarkably well you are looking today. But I have received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts." "How?" said he. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible, and in the middle of carnival? Oh." "I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain." "Amontillado? Ho, 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 ho." Thus speaking, Fortunato possessed himself of my arm. I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at home. They had absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I had told them that I should not return until the morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. I took from their sconces 2 torches, and giving one to Fortunato, bowed him through several suites to rooms of the archway that led to the vaults. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode. "The pipe," he said. "It is farther on," said I. "But observe the white webwork which gleams from these cavern walls." He turned towards me and looked into my eyes with 2 filmy orbs that distilled the rheum of intoxication. "Nitre?" he asked at length. "Nitre," I replied. "How long have you had that cough?" My poor friend found it impossible to reply for many minutes. "It is nothing," he said at last. "Come," I said with decision. "We will go back. Your health is precious." "Enough," he said. "The cough's a mere nothing. It will not kill me. A draught of this wine will defend us from the damps." Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mould. "Drink," I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused and nodded familiarly, while his bells jingled. "These vaults," he said, "are extensive." We had passed through long walls of piled skeletons, with casks and puncheons intermingling into the innermost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortunato by an arm above the elbow. "The nitre," I said. "See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. Come, we will go back ere it is too late. Your cough." "It is nothing," he said. "Let us go on. But first, another draught of the wine." I broke and reached him a flagon of de Grave. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed with a fierce light. We passed through a range of low arches, descended, passed on, and descended again, arriving at a deep crypt in which the foulness of the air caused our torches rather to glow than flame. "Proceed," I said. "Herein is the Amontillado." He had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress arrested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. In the wall surface were 2 iron staples. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. "Oh, once more, let me implore you to return." "No? Then I must positively leave you." "The Amontillado!" growled my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. "True," I replied. "The Amontillado." As I said these words, I busied myself among the pile of bones of which I had before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tier of the masonry when I discovered the intoxication of Fortunato had in a great measure worn off. I laid the second tier, and the third, and the fourth. And then I heard the furious vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes. I resumed the trowel and finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. A succession of loud and shrill screams bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form. I replied to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided, I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamorer grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawing to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position, but now there came from the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as that of the noble Fortunato. A very good joke indeed, an excellent jest. We will have many a rich laugh about it at the palazzo. Over our wine. The Amontillado. Yes, the Amontillado. But is it not getting late? Yes, I said. Let us be gone. For the love of God. Yes, I said. For the love of God. I called aloud, Fortunato! No answer. I called again, Fortunato! No answer still. I thrust a torch through and let it fall within. There came forth in return only a jingling of the bells. I forced the last stone into its position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of the bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has replaced them. In pace requiescat.